I love biking. You feel this meditative zenness where you can just feel like you can just sort of settle in and enjoy the ride. You can choose your speed, you can choose the way you want to do it, you can choose how you want to do it, and you can choose when too. I'm outside, I'm in nature, you have an extreme amount of freedom, and I love that feeling.
Reasons why I bike is like for leisure, for transportation, for environmental reasons, because it feels good, exercise. I feel a state of flow when I bike. Yeah, the list kind of goes on.
Every single time I get on a bicycle, it's fun. Every time I get on a bicycle, even if I'm just going shopping. It gives me freedom and it gives me access to pretty much everything that I need. It's a source of pleasure.
I remember starting Two Wheel View with, out of my garage. I had 5 bikes donated, and I went to a conference with some other outdoor educators and experiential education workshops, and met a guy, and he said that he used to live in Argentina. I said, well, I love traveling in Argentina, and it's like, we should take a group of kids to Argentina. He's like, well, that'd be great, that'd be fun. I said, well, it's probably pretty crazy, but let's do it. So within the first year of Two Wheel View, we put together an international bike trip to Argentina with a group of kids. I saw an opportunity to give young people a chance to do new things, to have new perspectives, do things that maybe they wouldn't have access to. Some of the founding principles around Two Wheel View were around social responsibility, cultural understanding, and also environmental awareness. And out of that, over the years, I've certainly been surrounded by a lot of talented people with a lot of passion to work with young people, and Two Wheel View's evolved into what you see today, with after-school programs, bike trips, and leadership programs that really, set young people up for success. It gives young people a chance to take risks. I think taking risks is important to growing up. Two Wheel View is good at that. I think it's very experiential. Builds confidence, builds leadership skills. The idea is to work with these young people to help them grow up and to be successful and to make positive change in their own lives and the communities where they live.
So we work with youth in junior high and high school, and also recent graduates of the school programs. And we work with them here in this space or out in their communities, as well as on bicycle trips. And so we do a variety of different things, and the bicycle is sort of a common thread through all of those different things with these young people that we're working with. And one of the core programs that we do is to go to schools and community centers and places like that and deliver a program where youth get to work with their hands and practice their mechanic skills, while also building teamwork and other types of skills, and walk away from that program having earned a bike that they worked on and that they learned about with their peers.
The 5 values that we follow and kind of live by here at Two Wheel View is resiliency, authenticity, respect, community, and adventure. And so I think a lot of those values are threaded within all of our programs, inside and outside of the space, as well as just the way that we relate to each other within a staff team or a volunteer team or with youth. We try and make decisions based on that.
I think what's so exciting about working at Two Wheel View is that it is like a values-driven organization. Values like community and adventure are the funnel that we make all of our decisions through and we take action through. 3 years ago, we actually got this shop/office space, and I think it's just been essential to the growth of our organization to actually have a foundational space to operate out of. Before that, we were fairly disparate all over town, and it just made operating programs and having a place to call home really challenging. And so for our youth that run programs out of here, they now have a place to come to and a place to call their home, as well as our volunteers and our broader community know where we are actually situated, and they can come and they can drop in and they can participate in our volunteer programs. But it's an exciting chapter, I think, in 2WU to have this foundation to be growing from.
The diversity of people that come here to volunteer is amazing, and there will be young folks and old folks and people from all different backgrounds. And one of my favorite things to see is the people who come here to volunteer who are very experienced, well-versed mechanics. Oftentimes those people will take a newbie under their wing and explain something to them, and to watch that happen organically in the shop, where we've kind of just like laid the slate and said, you know, come in and do your thing, and watching people interact and help each other is really rad.
There exists an idea that the bike is something enjoyed by the child, a toy that brings the child freedom and fun, but that's the end of it. But that freedom and fun doesn't have an age limit. In my limited time, I've already seen the shift in Calgary, where more and more people are commuting by bike, or incorporating the bike into their life as a way of exercise or recreation or for convenience. It's hacking into this childlike joy while also getting yourself to work or to the grocery store or getting your heart rate up. So I think it's easy to get excited about 2WU because everything we do is related to the bike. Or the bike is what gets us excited and brings us through the door. But when you really see, it's not about the bike, it's about the community and the learning and the relationships.
My name is Jaron Viscard. I love mechanics, I love bikes, and I am working at 2WU doing a practicum there. My first experience with 2WU was I was coming back from school from a field trip, and my teacher said there's this nice after-school program that one of his buddy runs, and I got interested, and so I went. I learned that the place teaches bike mechanics and you get to earn a bike during the time you're there. It was a ton of fun, and I've never left since. Growing up was pretty tough. My mother passed away when I was 6, so that was pretty hard. And then we moved quite a bit after that. It's been a challenge to feel comfortable and stable. I can't really remember it. It's been traumatic, but I think it was because of my mother passing. I never felt normal. I always felt different, which is always hard, especially when you don't have a mom to like help work with those emotional and mental practices. It's been a challenge and is a challenge every day. I do struggle with depression, but I work through it. Someone passing away isn't actually the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing is if you don't change and if you don't grow from that. I find that a lot of the skills that I've learned growing up was actually from maybe my mother passing or the change that occurred then. It taught me skills and lessons like how the world really worked, that life is very precious and that I should take care of it. I've been in a multiple of 2WU programs. The first one was Beltline Bike Club. There I went every Thursday after school, and I got the chance to take a bike, strip it down to its bare bones, and have the ability to be creative. And at the end of the program, everyone had their own bike that they painted, fixed, and built themselves. And it was awesome. I still ride with that bike and upgrade it every day. The GAP program works with bike mechanics, where you learn professional bike mechanics. You get really into how things work, how assemblies work. And the other part of it was learning the employment skills, where we learned about assets, budgeting. And it was a great way to get young adults who have basically no skills to a place where they can feel comfortable and go into the workforce at any point. It taught what it's like in the real world, how people connect with one another, how to communicate. A lot of young people, again, have a hard time communicating. They may feel nervous or anxious for like a new job interview, but being able to connect with your fellow peers, you can open up and you can just take a big deep breath, and it feels really awesome to be able to do that. And I think that's why it's important. It gives you the chance to make those mistakes and learn from each other. Before the GAP program, I was just like every other teenager. I didn't want to go out. I didn't feel comfortable being around large groups of people. I wanted to sort of isolate myself. But being in the BBC program, the GAP program, and now working with my practicum, I've been given the chance to flourish and truly grow. Being able to be open and letting people see who you are is one of the hardest things a lot of people work with. Adults, young kids, even elderly, like it's very hard to do that. At Two of You, that's probably the biggest thing I've learned, is just being myself and not having to worry that I have to be somebody else. So. I think my story is important to share because a lot of other young people feel the same as I do. They've come from maybe a dark place, and I want to share my story so other people can learn that there is outlets for this. There's outlets for you to feel comfortable and feel open with each other. I think Two of You is an extremely important key in teaching people that there's other ways of living your life. You can live it healthy, you can live it actively, and you can have fun doing it too. It's just so much fun.
It's interesting to just think like different stages in my life. Like there was a point where it was still bikes and it was like building trails, and that was partially just like the building though. It was like the ability to be creative like in community. And like I think whether we didn't necessarily define it as that, or we didn't necessarily know that that's what we were after, but I think we were after having a reason to hang out with friends and do something worth doing, like that we could like be proud of, or just get so stoked on. And so that I think shifted and changed to different things, and it became bikes again in university. But again, it was just like, we need a way to transport ourselves around the city. And then it was also like, this is just a really fun thing to do. And it's something that like people can come around and like get creative around and relate with. And so then all of a sudden you have this community that's like made up of people that bike, that totally wasn't the intention, but you were looking for something to like actually connect around, and that's how you got after it. So it's just interesting to think like, yeah, what is this story actually about? Because you could just say community, and that I think captures it, but you can also say like, no, it's about like being creative, or it's about like accomplishing something. Like I was chatting with Jeremy the other day. He's like, man, I worked on like this bike for like 6 hours. I like forgot to eat. I forgot to do all this stuff. He's like, I haven't done that since I was like a kid building Lego. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, kind of like same thing in that you like run into roadblocks and you like get frustrated, and then you get super stoked, and then you get like super frustrated, and it's annoying. And then all of a sudden you see yourself through this like problem solving, and you're like, you have this like immense sense of accomplishment. Like there's no time that I feel more like stoked than when I'm like, turn on the music in my garage and I just have a project that I want to do. And that project turns into like 3 different projects because you've hit roadblocks on one, or you get an idea for another. But then you just like, I can do that alone, and it just feels so like life-giving. And then you can also fill the garage full of people. Yeah, it has nothing to do with me working on bikes then. It's just like hanging out, and it's a reason to hang out instead of just like drinking beer at the pub or like going for coffee and like having to catch up. Yeah. It's like those things, you catch up with people when you're doing things, and I think people want to do things.
My name is Neil Bromley, and I am a volunteer and program facilitator at Two Wheel View. I was working for Good Life Community Bike Shop as a volunteer. I was working for them 2 or 3 days a week, and people from Two Wheel View were using the same space to do their volunteer evening, and they asked me if I would like to join them. It was so welcoming that I haven't left since. I've just been more and more involved as I've gone on. The staff here are always overworked, and they never get the opportunity to get all their work done. So when I come here to volunteer, I pick up the broom and sweep up just as likely as I am to pick up a wrench and start fixing bikes, because that needs to be done as well. So my role as a volunteer is to support whatever is needed to be done here. And if we need something painted, we need something swept up, we need a bike cleaned, I will do that. And if the bottom bracket needs stripping out, I'll do that as well. So it doesn't really matter. I just know that that's what needs to be done, so I get it done. As a facilitator, I would consider it to be my dream job. It's doing something that I feel strongly about, which is endorsing cycling, and also showing kids how to look after themselves, to try them to be as independent as possible, giving them a little more strength and confidence. I think it's important for everyone to have a certain amount of independence. It's a character thing. You feel better when you're able to do things. You feel stronger in yourself and you feel more empowered, and that gives you greater resilience when things come crashing. It's a medium to help people with their confidence and help people learn stuff. You know, become better mechanics, become a bit more considerate, a little more tolerant of other people, and to work well in groups and that sort of thing, you know, and it all works, it really does, and the environment encourages that.
Today we are working on project bikes. We're getting the guys to work and fix on donated bikes so we can hopefully resell them, and they can also work on their bike skills.
Have you ever taken a bike apart before?
No, but I love taking stuff apart, so woo!
You can see that the programs work, or you can tell, or you can feel that the programs work when you're halfway through a program, a 10-week program, and you get the feedback. Sometimes it takes like 4 or 5 weeks, and it's great. It's really good when you know you've actually touched a few nerves along the way, and you now have eye contact with someone who hadn't raised their head, and a smile from someone who barely made a comment. Or you've got a child who's refused to use a tool properly, actually putting a wrench on the correct size. In 10 weeks' time, you've got someone who probably never got their hands dirty or touched a tool in their life, now knows that their brake needs adjusting, knows what tool to use, and is not afraid to just ask. It's hard to describe the kids that I work with because they come from all kinds of different backgrounds and circumstances. There's not a typical child, so you can't put a finger on what kind of child comes to these sort of things because there's lots of different reasons. Sometimes they've been made to do it. Sometimes it's definitely a good thing for them and they've been advised to come, you know, by teachers and by parents. Sometimes they've come just to get a free bike, but they still have to work for it. It's an earn a bike program. But all those different attitudes all come all into one class, and you have to work it out how best to show them all how to fix bikes, and that's the challenge, and that's what makes it so much fun. Without realizing it, they actually learn to be more confident, and they learn quite specific skills. And because it's fun, they don't realize they're learning, and because the curriculum is done in such a way that the majority of things happen in a hands-on way. And the way it's done is not like teacher-pupil relationship. That juxtaposition means that we get different responses from the kids. And we are able to have an impact. You give a 10-year-old a bicycle and you are giving him freedom. It's good for you, it's good for the environment, it's good for your health. And you learn so much. And if you look after your own bicycle, it's empowering, it really is. And it's a very valuable thing to do, which is why I'm here as often as I am.
My name is Amy. I'm a volunteer trip leader for Two Wheel View, and I facilitate bike trips for youth. As a trip leader with Two Wheel View, I feel like I'm a support for the youth in facilitating their growth in the experience, but just providing the support that the youth need in navigating or showing them the ropes for bike riding or camping or cooking. Usually by the end of the trip, the youth are independent in all of these roles, but showing them anything from like, this is how you set up a tent, to this is how you fill up a bike tire, or this is like the most efficient way to ride your bike, or this is like a safety mechanism that you can implement to keep yourself safe on the road. A lot of what Two Wheel View does with the trips is very foreign to the youth. So yeah, emotional support, but also explaining what it is that we do in the trips. So the trip that we did this recent summer, we did Badlands to Banff. So we started in Drumheller and then biking all the way to Banff. So that was about an 11-day trip in total. So we stayed in multiple accommodations from anywhere from camping to like community centers with emphasis on biking. Most of our time was spent biking with a few extracurricular activities. Whether it's intentional or it just happens, I think variety is important on the trips because the youth get to learn from one another. And initially there's this like awkward period of like, wow, you're very different from me, and like I'm very different from you, and I've never interacted with you. But as the trip goes on, you can see the youth learning from one another and learning that like differences are okay in life, and that's really cool. And becoming really good friends with people they never would have imagined to be so close with. And I think that comes with spending like such a long amount of time together. But yeah, the variety I think is an important life lesson, that we're not all the same, and that's perfect.
We're just headed for the last little bit of the journey down into Carbon. We left Drumheller this morning and we'll be staying at Carbon tonight.
Sweet. How are your troops?
Good. They're doing really great. It's good to always, the beginning of the journey is always fun for starting to get to know each other and get comfortable with the bikes and stuff, but everybody's doing really great.
There's like independent time on the bike, which is unique, I think, for a lot of the youth and unfamiliar, because I feel like a lot of the time in people's lives, like as a youth, you're like relating to your family, you're relating to your friends, you're at school, you're in extracurricular activities, and there's not a lot of like solo time that happens. But when you're on the bike, you're kind of forced to just be by yourself and in your own head. And I think that's like a new experience for a lot of people. But then you're also intensely relating, like you're sharing a tent with somebody that you've met 2 days ago, or you're like cooking a meal with somebody you've like never spent time with, never mind like grocery shop together or cook together. The first day everyone felt a little bit awkward, uneasy, and probably day 3 everyone started like coming together, feeling comfortable, and hanging out as a group. So yeah, it's a really nice transition. There's this like understanding within myself, like this will be everybody's experience, and like this is what I've experienced, so hopefully you will too. And I think it's something that's really meaningful to me. But I think the youth experience it on their own time, whether it's like on day 3 or day 11, and just letting that natural transition happen for the youth. Of course, there's like encouragement that needs to happen when some of the youth are really struggling. I feel like offering that support of like, it's gonna be okay. Like this is something that's challenging you right now, but it's not forever, and you're gonna learn something from this experience. I think the intention of Two Wheel View in having these trips for the youth is development, and development of like resiliency in your physical, like how you can get yourself from one spot to another, like your personal growth, how you relate to other people. And then there's like these objective skill building activities like grocery shopping and cooking. Like a lot of the youth have never cooked before, and just allowing youth to discover that they're so capable. And yeah, it's like right there. You just need to try. First and foremost, it's an unfamiliar challenge for the youth, and being able to be dropped into something that's so unfamiliar, a lot of the youth are able to discover aspects of themselves that they've never been aware of, which is really cool to see. Like, whoa, I'm capable, or this is really challenging for me and I don't know why, or I've never experienced it. And okay, how do you deal with that? Is it like a positive thing that it's a challenge, or is it totally overwhelming? And I think that the time in the trip, like day 2 or day 3, it's like, whoa, you know, especially with the Badlands to Banff trip, it's like, I'm in this now and I've started it. And, you know, I think there's group pressure, like we're in this together and we can do that, but I'm in it and I kind of need to go forward. And then seeing youth on like day 10 being like, oh man, let's bike more. It's like, yeah. In some ways with the trip, the analogy of like a hill climb comes to mind in like the natural progression of what happens in a trip. So like in the beginning, you're really excited, and then, you know, the challenge starts to hit you on day 2 or 3. And then, you know, some people are able to bike up the hill, some people are walking, some people need to stop and take a moment. But everybody gets to the top of the hill at the end. Everyone finishes the trip just in different ways, and that's awesome.
It's not about the bicycle at the end of the day. It's about that human connection and that opportunity to work on something together, whether it's tangible like the bike or a larger program or the social emotional learning and a variety of our different programs that we run. And it's really about the people, and it's about their stories and what brought them to Two Wheel View, and it's about a really amazing place that's really lifting a lot of people up, regardless of their age or stage, and it's making a difference in the lives of people, and we get to have a heck of a lot of fun doing it too. The community connections and the connectedness to one another and the physical aspect of what we do is very tangible. And that's not necessarily something that we get in a virtual world. And so not only do we have, you know, people crossing paths with one another and connecting on a really amazing level and getting to know each other without the trappings of other stuff. They can connect over the bicycle and they can talk stuff out. We definitely need to connect with one another, and this is just a beautiful way and a beautiful instrument to do that. Everybody feels like they're a part of this. They see themselves in this organization, and they see themselves in the programs that they're involved with, whether it's the young people that come to our programs or the seniors that are involved, that they see a little bit of them here, and that they want to help carry that forward, and that they can say at the end of the day that I really was a part of making the community a better place. I do think our programs give our youth the opportunity to become the very best versions of themselves, and they get to try out different versions of themselves in a safe space that allows them to play with that and to experiment and to explore, and doesn't judge them for trying to figure out who they are. And I think it's a sense of belonging, really a sense of a place where they can come and be who they are, and give them a chance to really show who they are and what they are capable of. It's a lot about, you know, showing off possibility. It's showing that they're capable of many things beyond what they're able to imagine, and that they're strong and they're resilient. And even though they might not know it yet, they have resilience in there. We're just facilitating a process for them to explore that and to see it for themselves, because we see it and they're not necessarily able to see it yet. We are, you know, increasing our depth in the community and making sure that we're really having high impact programming, and making sure that we're offering the best programming that's really topical and applicable to the young people that we're working with on a daily basis, which of course evolves all the time. And so making sure that we're providing a really deep, meaningful experience for those young people, so that when they look back in 30, 40, 50 years, they can say, you know, that thing that I did with Two Wheel View, I don't maybe remember the exact ins and outs of it, but it really had a huge impact on my life. And I think it's also about sharing what we have going on here and the special community we have, and expanding that to more groups and to more places potentially, and sharing that sense of belonging and allowing more people to come through the doors to feel like they're really a part of something that's making a difference in the lives of others, and hopefully that they feel that it's made a difference in the lives of themselves too.
A way a community is built, it's built by these relationships and how you can connect with one another. Whether you just talk with someone or just feel comfortable just being around others. It's kind of like a symbiotic relationship with each other. You work for each other, but you also care for yourself as well. And being a community, you can always have a safety net because you always have someone there to support you. It's like a family. You know each other and you get to know each other quite easily, actually. I think bikes are such a great tool, as that's their philosophy. It really can bring people together in such a healthy way. Like, it's kind of a unique place. I've never ever experienced anything so unique that has allowed me to make mistakes, but there they allow you to be who you are, and it's quite awesome because you don't have to create a facade or anything, and you can grow with that. Working with the 2WU crew and getting a sense of self-esteem that, like, I'm worth something, it's been absolutely amazing. It feels like you're a community. Everyone there understands that, and so everyone can connect on the same page. And it's a unique experience. You can't really get it anywhere else.